Alright, so hello and welcome back to the continued coverage of the walkthrough series. And in this episode, we continue our look at the 9618 variant 42 of May June 2025, and we are doing the final question, which is question 3. So let me just scroll down to where we have question 3. So it says here that a program stores data about animals using object-oriented programming, OOP. The class animal stores the data about animals. Then we are given the structure of the animal class there in that class diagram. So you can see the fields in the first section and the methods or functions in the bottom section there. So our task here is to, in part A, item 1, is we are supposed to write code to declare the animal class and its constructor. Then not declare the other methods. Alright, so we just want the class and the constructor. Then we are not worried about description just yet for part A. So let's go ahead and actually look at the implementation that I have going on here. So switching to this tab where we have the code, let me just zoom in a little bit so that you can see better. Okay, so number 1, item 1, animal class and this constructor. This is the implementation. So we have the class definition on line 4 there. Then on line 5, we have the constructor definition. Then the constructor has those arguments, the name, sound, size, and intelligence, is shown here in the class diagram. Let me just zoom out a little bit here so that, okay, I think this is fine. Okay, so you can see the attributes that we are given here. We have them going on there. Then remember, the first argument that you always pass to any Python function or constructor specifically is going to be self, is it? You can always check out my Python series in which I go in great detail covering these concepts of that you need to take Python, rather to use Python for this course, as it were. So of course we would be done with addressing the requirements of question 1A, rather 3A, item 1. So you can go ahead and copy this code and paste it inside of the evidence document, as it were. Right, moving on to item number 2. Item number 2, we have a method called description. Then it's going to create and return a string of the animal's data in the format. So this is the format, right? So we have a string literal here. Then we are supposed to take the name of the animal from our variable. Then we concatenate with another string literal variable. So whenever you see the angled brackets, right, it means that we are going to supply those values from our program, but the string literal has to be typed in your program as it is. So here's an example. So you can see that in place of name, we have Teddy. In place of sound, we have Buck. In place of size, we have 4. And in place of intelligence, we have 6. Is it? So these values are going to be supplied at runtime by the program. So we are supposed to write program code for this description method or function is their code in Python. So let's switch to the tab where I have my implementation and show you how I went about it. So you see that we have the description right there. Then we are F printing, or rather it's actually F printing. Or in this case, we're not really printing per se, but we are just returning a string that is formatted with the curly braces. So you remember that format printing in Python, you have the variable name inside of curly braces, then you have the F parameter there at the beginning, so that whenever the program runs, it's actually going to take the variables that are stored inside of the specified variables and plug them in to your string, as it were. So for this, we get 3 marks. So you go ahead and copy this code and paste it inside of the evidence document, as it were. Then moving on to the next question, we have B, where we need to create the parrot class, right? And it's going to extend or inherit from the animal class, as it were. So we are told that the parrot inherits the attributes from the animal class and overrides the description method. The additional attributes and methods in the class parrot are, so we need to have these additional methods inside of the parrot class. Then it's also going to have its own constructor, which is also going to add these two values or attributes, as it were. So are we supposed to do everything? Yeah, let's see B item 1. Write program code to declare the class parrot, its constructor, and the method change numbers. Yes, so you're supposed to take care of everything inside of the parrot class. So let's go ahead and look at that implementation. So the important thing that you need to remember is that it inherits from the animal class as it were. So basically, we want to extend the functionality that we have going on inside of the animal class. So B item 1 is starting on line 15, rather line 16, where we have the class definition. Then we are defining the constructor for the parrot class, right? Notice how we have all the variables or rather attributes from the animal class included here, right? Then on line 18, that is when we are actually going to make sure that since this parrot class, it inherits from the animal class, right? It means that the constructor for the animal class needs to be called first and supplied with values. Then we can go ahead and plug in our own values. That is the wingspan and number of words, which are unique to the parrot class. So essentially, this super keyword simply means that we are going to call the super class is constructor, right? On line 18, that's what we are doing. We are calling the super classes constructor, and the super class is animal, and the subclass or the child class is the parrot class. Then, of course, we add our two additional attributes, and then that would be how you define the constructor for the animal, for the parrot class rather. Then we should have a variable, a function called change number of words or change number of words as it were. Then essentially it takes this parameter of words. If you come here, you see the description. It takes an integer parameter and adds this to the number currently in number words. So that's what we're simply doing here. We supply a value called words, then we add it to number words as it were. Then for this implementation, you can go ahead and copy and paste it into your evidence document and you get 4 marks. Then moving on with the solutions, let's look at B item 2. The method description in the class parrot creates and returns a string of the animal's data in the format. So you see that it's more or less the same as that of the animal class, but in addition, it's going to have the wingspan and the number of words, is it? So here's an example. Again, it's just like the first example, whereby whenever you see the angled brackets, it simply means that you need to replace those values with the variables at runtime. The values stored in variables at runtime. So we are to write program code for the description class. There's really not much thinking that you need to do for this one, because you see there's 2 marks there. So let's look at description here. Again, we are calling this description from the super classes. So the way we do it is we call the super class, then we call the description, then we store that as the base description variable. Then we are essentially taking, so remember that the description method right here, we are taking it from the super class and storing it as base description here on line 27. Then when we return the description now for this particular description class that belongs to the parrot class, we are taking whatever is returned by the description of the super class and then adding our own attributes to the output, is it? So we are adding the wingspan as well as the number of words. So the magic is happening on line 27 there, taking the output from the superclass's description method or a function and storing it inside of base description here, and then concatenating it with what? With what 2 other attributes in this string literal of wingspan, and so forth and so on. So for this, you get 2 marks. So you can copy the code and paste it inside of your evidence document. Let me just zoom out a little bit so that you can see the entire line like this. I think that one is too long, but I'm just gonna keep it here for now. Okay, so moving on with the solutions, we also have another class called Wolf, and it inherits from the class animal again. So Wolf is also going to inherit the attributes from animal and overrides the description method. The additional attributes and methods in the class Wolf are, so we have territory size, its own constructor, as well as the set territory size function, as it were. So our task is to write code for the class, for the Wolf class, as it were. So let's switch to the solution here that I have going on. So again, as before, we define the constructor, but taking care to remember that the animal class, right, is the super class and the Wolf class is the subclass, and the Wolf class essentially extends the animal class. So it means that all the attributes that are inside of the animal class they are also available to the WOOF class, but the WOOF class can then go ahead and add the territory size attribute as well. So that's what we are doing there. Then we call the super class constructor, right, and supply it with arguments. Then we add our own what territory size attribute. Then we also need to take care of the set territory size. Set territory size here, it says that it takes an integer parameter and adds this to the number currently in territory size. So it's more or less the same as number of words or number of words, if you remember. So pretty much the same thing, we do that and we are done with the solution for C item 1. So you copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then item 2, C item 2, the method description in the class WOOF creates and returns a string of the animal's data in this in the specified format. Again, remember, the angled brackets represents variables or values rather that should be supplied from variables at runtime. So we are supposed to write program code for the description function here. So here's the implementation, C item 2. Again, we are overriding the description method that is available in the superclass. So we need to do the same thing on line 41 that we did for the WOOF. Was it for the parrot class? Yeah, that's for the parrot class. So we call the description method in the superclass and it returns a value. Then we store it inside of this base description right here. Then we just concatenate it with what? With the territory size explanation here or description going on there. Then you can copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document for 2 marks. Then moving on, D item 1, the main program declares instances of the classes of 3 animals. So we are given that description there of a parrot, a wolf, and an animal, it's a horse, called Copper. So our main program is supposed to declare instances of these 3 animals. So let's go ahead and look at that. So let me scroll all the way down to my main method. So we have Chewy, and Chewy we know that is a parrot, right? So it means Chewy is going to be an object of the parrot class, and we supply the arguments there when we call the parrot constructor. Then Night Eyes, we know that it's a wolf because they said it here is a wolf, right? So we call the wolf class, we create Night Eyes as an object of the wolf class, supplying the arguments that are needed. Then we also do the same for the horse class. Copper is not specified, they just said animal, so it means we are going to use the animal class as it were. So that's why I used animal class right here. Then we supply the arguments there. Then for doing that, you'd get 2 marks. So you'd copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then the main program also needs to decrease the territory size for wolf Night Eyes by 20 square miles, increase the number of words the parrot Chewy can say by 2, then output the description for all 3 animals. So let's go ahead and do that here. This is where we are decrementing. This is where we are decrementing the territory size for Night Eyes. Then we are also changing the number of words for Chewy. These methods, again, you remember they are inside. This one is particularly in we wrote it in the, let me show you where we wrote it, right here on line 36. So it's inside of the wolf class, is it? Then change number of words, it's inside of the parrot class. So we are just calling these methods in from the respective classes. And you do need to remember to make use of the dot selector, because now you have a Night Eyes, which is basically a wolf object. Then you call the set territory size function from that particular class. Doing the same for the parrot class on line 52. Then of course you can go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Alright, yeah, the last part is to output the description of all the 3 animals. So let me not put a space between these, but rather make it like so. Then maybe I can, okay, I'll fix it later on. It's fine, let me just leave it like that. I wanted to put D item 2 here, but as a comment, but I think it's fine. It's workable like this. Okay, so the last part requires us to test our program and take a screenshot of the outputs. So we are just calling the main method on line 56 and 57. So let's go ahead and hit the play button. And you see that we are getting the output, is it? So the animal's name is Chewy, it makes a squawk, its size is, and so forth and so on. Then the second output is for the wolf, and the third output is for the horse, as it were. So yeah, I think that's just about it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.